Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Chris, your financial coach, financial therapist, back with another one of our, I don't even know what we're calling these things, but I'm back to talk to you about money, right? We're back to talk to you about money. This year in 2024, we decided to give you guys all of the information that you needed around all of the financial topics in one place, right? And so today, we're gonna have a really important conversation. But as always, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. It's incredibly important. We're going to constantly be giving you more and more information around finances, and we want you to be first to the information. Today, we're having a conversation around debt. It's the thing that a lot of people are struggling with. Drop an article in here that said there's about $1 trillion in credit card debt that Americans have. So Americans have about $1 trillion in credit card debt. How do we get to this place? Well, obviously, as a financial professional, the answer is we're living beyond our means, right? We're living above the level of income that's coming in. And because America has done a great job of putting us in this consumer society, this consumer nation, what happens is people are over leveraged. It becomes easy to pick up more debt. The commercials are constantly asking you to get the new credit card or to buy the new thing. Every store that you go to gives you an option to finance something, to say, hey, instead of paying the lump sum, let's pay 4 monthly payments. Or if you go into the store and you're buying the thing from Kohl's or from Walmart or your favorite store, they're saying, hey, you can apply for this credit card, and if you do that, we'll give you all this, discount on these purchases, 10% off, 15% off, whatever it comes out to be. And so as consumers, we've fallen into this trap. We've fallen into this trap a ton, and it's something that we have to continue to work and be mindful of how to get out of it. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about a couple things and a couple areas to pay attention to in your debt so that this is not an issue for you for the rest of this year. First thing we're going to talk about is all debt bad debt, right? You might hear this, all debt is bad debt, or maybe some people in your circle might say all debt's not bad debt. Well, let's clear that up. Consumer debt, any debt that does not bring you more money, okay? Any debt that you pay an interest on and does not bring you in more money is bad debt. Car loans, credit card debt, any type of consumer debt that you might have from Amazon or Afterpay or whatever it is. All of these debts are bad debt. Why? Because they're taking money out of your pocket. You're paying more in interest to the credit card companies. And even if you happen to be at a place where you're getting very low interest or 0%, still more money is coming out. And on top of that, it's not bringing you anything in return. You've already used the goods. You've already bought the thing. You've already spent the thing. And now it's not bringing you anything in return, so now you're just paying it down. That's called bad debt. The other side, good debt, which is an actual thing. So some people out there might be like, oh, there's no such thing as good debt. No, there is good debt. Good debt is debt that brings you in or has the potential to bring you in more money. So this is the slippery slope. Some people say student loans were good debt. Well, the fact that we're $1 trillion in student loan debt also, right, might say something different. But what they sold us on was that the fact that student loan debt is good debt. Why? Because it could potentially bring you more money. If you pay this money to this institution, they'll issue you this piece of paper along with a little bit of knowledge and some, credibility. And then you should be able to make more money. You should be able to get a better job. You should be able to do the things you want to do to pay back that debt. So in essence, that debt made you more money. Same thing about owning a business or taking out a business loan or taking out a mortgage for income producing rental properties. Same thing. You're willing to go into debt. Why? Because you know this is going to bring you back money. There's a return on investment. So technically that is good debt. If you can leverage this money to bring you back multiples of what you just borrowed and pay that back, then that's going to make sense. That is a way to leverage debt. But consumer debt that you just pay, that does not have the ability to return you any more money, is not good debt. So that's the first thing to understand. Second thing to understand, what happens when we have a bunch of credit card debt? What are some strategies that we can use? Well, there's a strategy called the debt Snowball method. There's another strategy called the debt Avalanche method. We've put it more into our resource down below. So again, go into the description. You're going to see a book, an ebook that we wrote that specifically, if you're dealing with debt, this is going to help you be able to get yourself out of debt using these strategies, the debt Snowball, debt Avalanche method. So what does this say? This says you have a bunch of credit cards. Let's say you have 6 credit cards, okay? And those credit cards all have different balances. They all have different interest rates and all have different minimum payments. So you need to know all those things first and foremost. What's the interest rate? What's the balance? What's the minimum payment? And then what you're going to do is you're going to line those up. And you're going to say, okay, we're either going to take the lowest balance card first, or we're gonna take the highest interest card first. And we're going to throw as much as our budget can handle just to that one card and just pay the minimums on everything else. Now, this might be counterintuitive to some people that have been trying to pay down their credit card debt, because a lot of people, what we've seen is people just pay a little bit over the minimums to all the cards, right? Your minimum is $48 on one card, you pay $60. Minimum's $127 on one card, you pay $140. You just pay a little bit over the minimum, but you do it to all the cards. Well, that's a surefire way to not get yourself out of debt, because the interest is still accumulating faster than what you're paying over that amount. So we have to take a step back and say, we're gonna look at all the debt, and we're gonna attack one card, either the card with the lowest balance or the card with the highest amount of interest. And we're gonna throw all of the money that our budget can handle to that one card and just pay the minimums on the rest. Once you do that, then you'll say, okay, that card gets paid off. Now you take that same amount that you were putting to that one card and then you roll it to the next card. Now, third thing, what happens if your debt becomes too much? What is that number? What does it look like if your debt becomes too much? Well, here's how to know it. Number one, if you are not seeing your debt go down over a 3-month or 6-month period, you're probably in over your head, or you don't have the proper strategy in place. If your debt is staying the same or rising, you probably don't have the right habits in place or the right strategy. So when debt becomes overwhelming, we really need to take some drastic steps. Now, some of you have heard about debt consolidation or some form of debt management, right? This could be an option for some people. Typically, we would tell you, most of these companies start around $10,000 of unsecured debt. Personal loans, medical bills, credit cards, those things. Can't put student loans in any of that. But from the actual, personal loans, credit card side of things, it'll get to a point in time where you might say, hey, I might want to consider consolidating, consider some type of consolidation. Here's a tip for all of you that are out there. Here's what we're not going to do. What we're not going to do is we're not going to take out more debt to pay for debt. Hear me again. We're not going to take out more debt to pay for debt. I know these things might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but here's a scenario that we run into a lot here on the financial coaching side. Someone gets into a little bit of credit card debt. You get into $15,000 of credit card debt, and you get this letter in the mail that says, hey, take out this personal loan to pay down all your debt. All that debt is high interest. Your credit cards are 19, 25, 29%. We'll give you this $15,000 loan only at 9% interest. And so common sense says, well, 9 is lower than 28. My monthly payment might be lower. Cool, here's what I'll do. I'll take out this loan and I'll pay off all my credit card debt, and then I'll just pay back the loan. Sounds like the smart idea, right? But here's what we do as a financial coach and as a financial therapist. We're looking at the habits that got you into debt. So how did we get into $15,000 worth of debt? Well, again, we over leveraged. We didn't make all the money we thought we would. We had unexpected expenses pop up, so we couldn't throw all that we wanted to the debt, anything. You lost your job. There's a bunch of things that could have happened. Question is, are they still happening? Just because you have a solution that I'm gonna take this debt and I'm gonna pay off this debt doesn't mean that you've actually fixed the problem. The problem is, how do we get into debt? So if we're not careful of changing our habits of what got us into debt, taking out more debt will put us in a deeper hole. And that's what we see typically. Most people that take out a loan that don't sit down with us first or don't address the habits first, large percentage of the people. I don't have specific stats for you, but I would say it's upwards of the 80 or 90% of people that say, I have this credit card debt and I'm going to now take out a loan to pay off the credit card debt. They go right back into credit card debt and they have a loan to pay. They double up, because what happens is they didn't have the habits to keep them out of debt. So they do the same things thinking that they'll get a different result. So that's something to be aware of, and that's a tip for all of you. We're not going to take out debt to pay down debt. We're gonna fix habits first, and then we're gonna go about saying, okay, you know what? We need to now not put any more things on these cards, and we're gonna have a strategy of how we're gonna pay this off. Now, moving forward, when is debt consolidation something that you should entertain? Again, when you're completely over leveraged, you have $40,000, $50,000 of debt, maybe even $30,000 of debt, and you maybe only make $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year. Debt is half of your actual income. That's not even expenses. Well, then you might want to think about consolidating. We work with a company and we're more than happy to share it. This is like the second or third step. This wouldn't be the first step to getting out of debt because again, you're not affecting the habits. This is just a band-aid, like a solution for the short time period. But what it does is most of these consolidating companies will do a mixture of these things. They'll put all of the cards, all of the loans, all of it together. They'll basically make you go delinquent on them and they'll start to negotiate the payments for you. You, the consumer, pays a low monthly payment to the company so that they can negotiate on your behalf. So you might have been paying $1,000 a month in actual credit cards. You now put it into consolidation. You don't have access to those credit cards or the loans, but instead of paying $1,000 a month, you're only paying $500 a month. And that extra $500 goes right back into your pocket, goes right back into your cash flow. Then over the next 2-year, 3-year, 4-year period, typically, you'll pay yourself out of debt. Now, what's the downside? Your credit will take a hit. You're going delinquent on accounts. So of course your credit's gonna take a hit. But here's something to understand. Credit is a 202 level concept. Right now we're dealing with a 101 level concept, which is your debt management, right? Like your consumption. How did you get into debt? How do we get out of it? If you're gonna think about your credit, you need to be at the 202 level already. You need to already be saying, hey, you know what? I'm good on the habits of debt. I'm good to be able to get out of debt. I understand how to not over leverage myself. So therefore, now I can move to that second level and say, let me focus on my credit. So now I have the ability to leverage more money. But we should never be thinking about leveraging more money, AKA our credit, if we can't manage the money that's already coming in. It's a losing formula, okay? So we have to make sure that we're taking things at the level that we're at. So if you do debt consolidation, your credit score will suffer. But the good thing is, once you're out of debt and you've built good habits over those 2, 3, 4 years of not having to use credit cards and just managing what's coming in and what's going out, well then you'll build your credit very quickly. Credit's very easy to build. And again, there's people that specialize in just building credit, but you got to know when's the proper time to do that. I answer this last question just because I've gotten it from some people. If you do consolidation or if you stop paying, right, can credit card companies or can these debtors, can they actually sue you? Well, the answer is yes, they can sue you. Most don't, especially for small balances. Most don't. Most companies will go the other direction and they'll just send it over to collections. So let's talk about this collections process. So here's the collections process in America. What happens is you have a company that you owe money to. Let's say again, Capital One. I just know Capital One. I'm not getting sponsored by them, but I help a lot of people get out of debt. And a lot of people have Capital One cards, so it is what it is. So let's say you got this Capital One card and you just choose not to pay it. You got $1,000 balance on there. You just choose not to pay it. They'll go 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 150 days, 180 days, contacting you to get you to pay that money. If you don't pay it, then they're gonna say, you know what? You're not gonna pay this money. We're gonna sell your debt, Capital One, we're gonna sell your debt over to a collection agency. Once it goes from Capital One over to a collection agency, it goes from active debt to inactive debt. Okay, it goes from active debt, which means you actively have to pay on it. Once it goes into collections, it becomes inactive debt, which means they're just trying to recoup this money. You don't have to actively pay it. The account is no longer open. That is sitting in a whole different world. So the person you owe the money to, Capital One, says you no longer owe the money to us. But they sell your debt for pennies on the dollar, by the way. So if you owed $1,000 to Capital One, the collection agency bought that debt for maybe $500, maybe $400. Yeah, that's about right? So maybe $500 or $400 they paid for. Then the collection agency now starts sending you letters and calling you and say, hey, you owe Capital One $1,000. We're here to collect on that. Now, what you need to know as a consumer is a couple things. One, technically, and there's some other people that can do this, right, and walk you through it a little bit better than I can, in all honesty. Technically, you don't owe that debt anymore because it's kind of wiped away. And with the new company that picks it up, they're not legally entitled to do that. There's some loopholes in there. And again, you're on YouTube, so you can probably find some of that stuff on here. By the way, not all information that you hear on YouTube is correct. So please double check, triple check, quadruple check your resources. But there are some ways to say, you know what, once it gets passed off, that's actually not legal, okay? That's one side. The other thing to know though is Once the collection agency starts calling you for it, you can negotiate how much you're willing to pay back. Because you know they only paid $500, half of the amount of what you owe, even though they're telling you that you owe $1,000. Well, if you have that money on you and you say, you know what, I just want to close this out and get this done with, I'll pay you $700, I'll pay you $600. Most likely, those collection agencies will say, okay, we'll take that, and they'll settle the account. Now, it does not mean that it comes off your credit. Hear me clearly. It does not mean that that then comes off your credit. They do not, by law, have to take that and remove that off your credit. It'll say that the account is charged off, it's closed, right? It's done, you settled it, there's no longer a balance on it. It won't keep reporting that to your credit, but it does still sit on your credit unless you manually ask them to remove it, and they don't legally have to. So anyway, that being said, understand that if you do go the debt consolidation route, the downside is your credit gets, hurt a bit, but at the end of the day, you'll be able to live a life that's debt-free, and you can have the right habits how to never put yourself in that position again. If any of you need some resources, again, we're always here for you to give you more resources on this, but there's a guy that you can go check out. His name's Dave Ramsey. We're not huge fans. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of people on YouTube that are. We're not necessarily, because all of the things that he talks about may not be the best for our community or for people that are in the financial spaces that we're in. But at the end of the day, getting out of debt and learning how to manage debt is an important skill in your financial life. And Dave Ramsey is a good resource to be able to start there. So if not, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Feel free to send us a message, reach out. We are here. We're your trusted financial coaches, financial therapists, financial planners. We're here to help you understand your money a lot better. And this issue of debt, we got to take control of for this year. All right, y'all. Until next time, take care.